Hello everyone. Come to my channel, Mukku. My name is Mukku. Today we are going to discuss G20 Summit. What is G20 Summit? The number of countries in G20. Agenda of the summit. And so on. G20 and India's presidency. G20 Development Working Group, DWG, meeting to be held in Mumbai from December 13th to 16th, 2022. India will host over 200 meetings in over 50 cities across 32 different work streams. G20 delegates and guests to get a glimpse of India's rich cultural heritage and a year-long Indian experience. The theme of India's G20 presidency Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam or One Earth. One Family. One Future closely ties with lifestyle for environment. India's G20 presidency will work to promote this universal sense of oneness. Hence our theme One Earth, One Family, One Future, PM Narendra Modi. Development Working Group, DWG. The DWG meetings aim to discuss developmental issues in developing countries, DC, least developed countries, LD, and island countries, small island developing states SIDS. The DWG is a platform for G20 member countries to come together and prioritize multilateralism, share solutions that promote growth, remap development plans, and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals targets, SDG. The G20 possesses the knowledge, expertise, and financial resources required to reverse trajectories that have gone off track. The DWG was held in the third G20 at Bali between August 10th to 12th, 2022, and concluded with the discussion and finalization of key G20 agreements. These include G20 Roadmap for Stronger Recovery and Resilience in DCs, Least Developed Countries, LDCs, and SIDS, the G20 Principles to Scale Up Blended Finance in DCs, the G20 Ministerial Vision Statement, Multilateralism for Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, Decade of Action, and the 2022 G20 Bali Update. The first DWG meeting during India's presidency will be held in Mumbai from December 13th to 16th, 2022. In these meetings, sessions on data for development, the role of G20 in advancing the 2030 Agenda, infusing new life into green development, and accelerating progress on the SDGs. The delegates will enjoy cultural events that give them a unique Indian experience, go for a Gateway of India walk and also an excursion to Kanheri Caves on the last day. 1st December 2022 is a red-letter day as India assumed the G20 presidency from Indonesia and will convene the G20 Leaders Summit for the first time in the country in 2023. A nation deeply committed to democracy and multilateralism, India's G20 presidency would be a watershed moment in her history as it seeks to play an important role by finding pragmatic global solutions for the well-being of all, and in doing so, manifest the true spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam or the world is one family. So, what is the G20? The Group of 20, G20, is an intergovernmental forum comprising 19 countries: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, United Kingdom, and the United States, and the European Union. The G20 members represent around 85% of the global GDP, over 75% of the global trade, and about 2/3 of the world population. The G20 was founded in 1999 after the Asian financial crisis as a forum for finance ministers and central bank governors to discuss global economic and financial issues. It was upgraded to the level of heads of state government in the wake of the global economic and financial crisis of 2007, and, in 2009, was designated the premier forum for international economic cooperation. What is the G20 Summit? The G20 Summit is held annually, under the leadership of a rotating presidency. How does the G20 work? The G20 presidency steers the G20 agenda for 1 year and hosts the summit. The G20 consists of two parallel tracks, the finance track and the Sherpa track. Finance ministers and central bank governors lead the finance track, while Sherpas lead the Sherpa track. The finance track is led by finance ministers and central bank governors of the member countries. Within the two tracks, there are thematically oriented working groups in which representatives from the relevant ministries of the members, as well as from invited guest countries and various international organizations, participate. The G20 process from the Sherpa track is coordinated by the Sherpas of member countries, who are personal emissaries of the leaders. The Sherpa track oversees inputs from 13 working groups, 2 initiatives, Research Innovation Initiative Gathering, RIG, and G20 Empower, and various engagement groups, all of whom meet throughout the year and develop their issue notes and outcome documents in parallel. These substantive discussions then feed consensus-based recommendations to the Sherpa meetings. The outcome document of the Sherpa-level meetings eventually forms the basis of the leaders' declaration, which will be debated and signed, after and if consensus is reached, at the final New Delhi summit in September next year by the leaders of all G20 member countries. In addition, there are engagement groups which bring together civil societies, parliamentarians, think tanks, women, youth, labor, businesses, and researchers of the G20 countries. The Startup 20 Engagement Group will be established under India's G20 presidency for the first time, recognizing the role of startups in driving innovation that responds to a rapidly changing global scenario. Active consultation with the engagement groups forms an integral part of India's inclusive, ambitious, decisive, and action-oriented G20 approach, as outlined by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the Bali summit this year. India's G-20 presidency. India holds the presidency of the G20 from 1st December 2020 to 30th November 2023. The 43 heads of delegations, the largest ever in G20, will be participating in the final New Delhi summit in September next year. The G20 logo draws inspiration from the vibrant colors of India's national flag, saffron, white and green, and blue. It juxtaposes planet Earth with the lotus, India's national flower that reflects growth amid challenges. The Earth reflects India's pro-planet approach to life, one in perfect harmony with nature. Below the G20 logo is Bharat, written in the Devanagari script. The theme of India's G20 presidency, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or One Earth, One Family, One Future, is drawn from the ancient Sanskrit text of the Maha Upanishad. Essentially, the theme affirms the value of all life, human, animal, plant, and microorganisms, and their interconnectedness on the planet Earth and in the wider universe. The theme also spotlights life, lifestyle for environment, with its associated, environmentally sustainable and responsible choices, both at the level of individual lifestyles as well as national development, leading to globally transformative actions resulting in a cleaner, greener and blue future. For India, the G20 presidency also marks the beginning of Amritkal, the 25-year period beginning from the 75th anniversary of its independence on 15 August 2022, leading up to the centenary of its independence, towards a futuristic, prosperous, inclusive and developed society, distinguished by a human-centric approach at its core. A new working group on disaster risk reduction will be established under India's presidency to encourage collective work by the G20, undertake multidisciplinary research, and exchange best practices on disaster risk reduction. India's special invitee guest countries are Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, Spain, and UAE. G20's invited international organizations are UN, IMF, World Bank, WHO, WTO, ILO, FSB, OECD, AU Chair, NEPAD Chair, ASEAN Chair, ADB, ISA and CDRI. G20 meetings will not be limited only to New Delhi or other metropolises. Drawing inspiration from its G20 presidency theme of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam-One Earth, One Family, One Future, as well as the Prime Minister's vision of an all-of-government approach, India will host over 200 meetings in over 50 cities across 32 different work streams, and would have the opportunity to offer G20 delegates and guests a glimpse of India's rich cultural heritage and provide them with a unique Indian experience. The presidency is also a chance for the G20 Secretariat to provide the country's citizens with the unique opportunity to be a part of India's G20 story. The Indian G20 presidency has also planned a year-long India experience for G20 member countries, special invitees, and others. What are India's G20 priorities? Green development, climate finance, and life. The opportunity to lead G20 comes at a time of compounding existential threat, with the COVID-19 pandemic having exposed the fragilities of our systems under the cascading impacts of climate change. In this regard, climate change is a key priority for India's presidential presidency, with a particular focus towards not only climate finance and technology, but also ensuring just energy transitions for developing nations across the world. Understanding that the issue of climate change cuts across industry, society, and sectors, India offers the world lifestyle for environment, a behavior-based movement that draws from our nation's rich, ancient sustainable traditions to nudge consumers, and in turn markets, to adopt environmentally conscious practices. This ties closely with India's G20 theme, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or One Earth, One Family, One Future. Accelerated, inclusive and resilient growth. Accelerated, resilient and inclusive growth is a cornerstone for sustainable development. During its G20 presidency, India aims to focus on areas that have the potential to bring structural transformation. This includes an ambition to accelerate the integration of MSMEs in global trade, bring in the spirit of trade for growth, promote labor rights and secure labor welfare, address the global skills gap, and build inclusive agricultural value chains and food systems, etc. Accelerating progress on SDGs. India's G20 presidency collides with the crucial midpoint of the 2030 Agenda. As such, India acknowledges the detrimental impact of COVID-19, which changed the current decade of action into a decade of recovery. In line with this perspective, India wants to focus on recommitting G20's efforts to achieving the targets laid out in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, Technological Transformation, and Digital Public Infrastructure. As G20 presidency, India can foreground its belief in a human-centric approach to technology and facilitate greater knowledge sharing in priority areas like digital public infrastructure, financial inclusion, and tech-enabled development in sectors ranging from agriculture to education. Multilateral institutions for the 21st century. India's G20 priority will be to continue pressing for reformed multilateralism that creates a more accountable, inclusive, just, equitable, and representative multipolar international system that is fit for addressing the challenges in the 21st century. Women-led development. India hopes to use the G20 forum to highlight inclusive growth and development, with women empowerment and representation being at the core of India's G20 deliberations. This includes a focus on bringing women to the fore and in leading positions, in order to boost socio-economic development and achievement of SDGs. India kickstarted its presidency term agenda with a series of cultural initiatives that included various Jan Bhagidari activities, a special University Connect event with 75 educational institutions from across the country, the lighting up of 100 ASI monuments with the G20 logo and colors, and showcasing G20 at the Hornbill Festival in Nagaland. Sand artist Sri Sudarshan Patnaik also created sand art of India's G20 logo on Puri Beach in Odisha. Various other events, youth activities, cultural performances, and site excursions showcasing the sites and traditions of respective city venues are also planned throughout the year-long calendar. Thanks for watching my video. Please subscribe, share, like, and comment.